Hi nerds! So I have mentioned quite a few times on here that I am not a very fast writer, and it's definitely something over the years that I've had to come to terms with and learn to work with. So today I wanted to share some of my tips with you, things I have learned about being a slow writer. My first tip is, whenever possible, try to write in short writing sprints with frequent breaks. I know this seems kind of counterintuitive because when you write slow, you feel like you just have to keep pushing yourself and just write for as long as possible so you can get as many words as possible. But personally, I find that I write better and get more done when I'm giving myself breaks, I'm getting up, getting my blood flowing. There's probably some science behind that, I don't know. What I do know is that when I force myself to just sit there for hours and hours and write, it actually doesn't help. I feel discouraged and I get distracted, and it's just better for me if I am doing those shorter sprints. My second tip, and this is something that I have been working on and getting used to with my current work in progress, and I love it, and it is outlining your scenes before you write them. Some people call this outlining your scenes, some people call it making screenplays, whatever you call it. It's basically like a storyboard for an animated movie. It's a really rough mock-up of what your scene is going to look like. Basically what mine look like is a just kind of list of what's happening in the scene, along with any dialogue that is already come to me that I know is going to be in there. So it will say, main character breaks into the house of the king's most trusted advisor. She climbs in through a window of his office and can hear sounds from the dinner party going on downstairs. She looks through his desk and does not find anything useful. Then she hears voices and footsteps approaching the door, so she hides under the desk and two people come in. And then this is where I would have some of the dialogue, so any dialogue that I know is going to happen between these two faceless characters that are in the room. Or maybe it will just be a description of main character hears their evil plot, and I'll fill that in later. I will say that this is something that has taken me a lot of practice to get used to. When I first started doing it, I was putting way too much detail into it. I was writing it in my notebook and it was basically the entire scene, but I would fill in a little bit of description and detail when I typed it up. Now I type it up in my document right where my scene is going to go, and then I write the scene above it, and then I delete the outline when I'm done. And I've gotten a lot better at being very brief, very little description, just a listing of what's happening and what people are saying. And ideally that's what you want. You want it to be nice and brief so that you can get it done in like a quick 30-minute writing session. Writing these outlines helps me as a slow writer for two reasons. The first is that part of my problem that makes me a slow writer is trying to balance plot and prose while I'm drafting. Figuring out what's going on and how to say it is really difficult for me to do at the same time. I'm actually a very fast typer. It's just getting the words out of me that takes me a long time. Writing these outlines allows me to focus on one thing at a time. So when I do the outline, I'm figuring out what happens, I'm figuring out the plot. And then when I actually type up the scene, I can focus on the prose and the descriptions and how I want to say things. Which means that in the end, I come out with a better, more polished scene than I used to when I was trying to tackle everything at once, which is good as a slow writer because hopefully it will mean not having to spend quite as much time on revisions in exchange for having taken so much time on drafting. Another reason that outlining scenes helps me is that as a slow writer, it usually takes me 2 or 3 days to write an entire scene if I don't have tons of time to spend on writing, and that leaves me a lot of time to forget things. I usually go into a scene with a really clear idea of what I want to happen. I know whole lines of dialogue that I want characters to say. I know how the scene is going to end, and so I'll sit down with all of that in my head. I'll write a third of the scene and then stop, and then I come back the next day and I can't remember anything that I had planned. So kind of a tip within the tip for slow writers here is to write as much down as you can. Write down every idea you have, even the little lines of dialogue or what you want to have happen in the middle of a scene or at the end of a scene, because when you're writing slow, it takes you longer to get to things, which gives you, like I said, a lot more time to forget what you were going to do. My final tip for slow writers, which is probably the most important and most universal tip, is don't stress yourself so much about it. I spent so much time early in my writing career comparing myself to other writers who were cranking out 10,000 words a day and worrying about if I wasn't writing enough words every day and if I wasn't finishing my books fast enough, and that was not helpful or productive. The only thing that matters is that you finish the book. Finishing is key. You won't have a book to publish if you don't finish it. Other than that, it doesn't matter if it takes you 2 months or 8 months. Your speed is your speed. You should not compare it to your friend's speed or to that famous author's writing speed. Write as fast or as slow as you need to create the best book you can. That's all that matters. That's it for today, nerds. Obviously, what works for me will not work for everyone, but hopefully at least some of you will find something in this that can help you to get those words down onto paper and finish that book. Don't forget to join us this Sunday at 7:30 Eastern Time for our live chat. We are finishing up with our Nano Prep series, so we can't wait to see you there.